All right. Okay, so we'll get started and wait for everyone else to get here. But in the meantime, that's on? Okay. In the meantime, you guys are gonna have to install a plugin for Grasshopper called Weaverbird. So this is the website that you can get it from. If you just Google Weaverbird for Grasshopper, it should work. Yep. Yeah, so this is what will allow us to sort of manipulate that organic mesh that I showed you guys earlier. Grasshopperdocs.com. So it's just the website that I've got up on the screen, if that helps. So the way to install this, if you click download, what it'll do is what will it do? That's weird. Yeah, it'll take you to this page here, and you want to click this, download Weaverbird for Rhino 6 and 7. So if you click on it, it'll start downloading, right? So I've already downloaded it, so I'm not going to do it again. But basically, put this file. It's a kind of a weird sort of file, but anywhere on your computer, and then on a blank Grasshopper canvas, you just want to drag and drop that file. So I've got where have I got my file? Just here. So what I want to do is just drag this file onto like a blank canvas and just drop it in. And then you should get prompted to like install a bunch of packages and stuff, which you can do. On Grasshopper. Yeah, so you just want to put it on a Grasshopper canvas, not a Rhino canvas. So basically, imagine that this is a blank. Imagine that this is like a blank template. All you're going to do is just drag and drop it like that. Yep, so just grab the file, drop it in, hopefully that works. If that's not working for anyone, just let me know. Once it's done, you should see a little tab at the top, or I'm not sure where it is on Mac, but at the top here, and it says WB, and WB is just Weaverbird. So these tabs at the top are basically all of your component sets. So there's Rhino's default ones up to I think display, and then all of these other ones are sort of just like extra. You might not have it. They're basically just extra plugins that we've used over the years. Yeah, so you can no. Oh yes, actually. Yeah, I think actually it does pop up with like sort of like a tutorial sort of example of what you can do with Weaverbird, but don't worry about that. As long as you see this here, this like WB at the top, you might need to restart Grasshopper for it to work, but as long as you see this WB thing, then yeah, yeah, yeah. So if there's a pop-up that says download and install, just do that. No, you'll just want to start a new one, start a new script. Yeah. All right, how'd everyone go with that? If you guys can see WB at the top, then you'll know it worked. Sorry? Yeah. Right, so just to go over it again, this website has a download link for Weaverbird. You click on that and save your, it'll download a Grasshopper file, save it anywhere, and then you just drag and drop the Grasshopper file onto a blank Grasshopper canvas. And then just follow the prompts. If it asks you to download or install anything, just download or install it. And then it should pop up with like a tutorial file. You can just get rid of that. It just shows you what's like possible with the new plugin. It's kind of like an ad. It's all good. Yeah, it's all good. I know trains are funky today. Mm. All right. Everyone's sort of good with that? Yeah. All right. So next thing we're gonna do is I want you guys to sort of start making your own designs at this point because it's going to be easier to do it now rather than doing it later at home. Yeah, yeah, I'm recording. So the first thing you're going to want to do is generate your starting geometry, your reference geometry in Rhino. So that is going to be same as last week. We have a directrix and an axis. No, we have a directrix and a generatrix. But this week we have only a generatrix and an axis. Essentially what we're doing is revolving a pattern around like a central axis, sort of like a vase is sort of a circular around a central axis. So we're going to just draw that axis. I'm just going to do a really simple one, which is just a line like that. But if you guys were feeling kind of creative, then you can go back to the tutorial on week 2 where we went over the different methods to generate surfaces. So you know how we had one that was sort of like sweep, revolve around a curve, extrude, all of those funky ones. Essentially, all you want is a surface, right? So for this one, we're going to do a revolved surface around an axis because that's something we haven't done yet. But you could do any kind of organic sort of surface. For the assignment, try and make it sort of funky using some of the more advanced designs that we covered in week 2. If you just do sort of like a flat surface, it's not going to cut it. Potentially something a little bit more complicated than that, like a wavy surface, you know, if you really want to get crazy. So yeah, we're just going to do a simple revolve one. So this is our axis, right? This is what we're going to revolve it around. Just to note, I'm on the front display here. So from perspective, this will be a vertical line. Yeah? Sorry? Oh yeah. So that tutorial thing, the Weaverbird sort of like display file, you can just get rid of that. No, this is a blank Rhino canvas, a blank Grasshopper canvas. Yeah. You can just delete it. You can just click new file. Yep. Sorry. Are you putting it in Rhino or Grasshopper? Oh, the .gh file? That's weird. I'll have a look.
No, I know.
All right, so um, hey guys. Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's so good. We can do it after class or on the break or whatever.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. Um, maybe just check if like another window is opened up, because it might open up something called like a package manager.
What do you mean by another window?
Like if you go down to the taskbar, there might be like another. I'm not sure. No, nothing. Okay.
I don't know what you mean.
That's all good. So it says that Rhino will open a package manager. Yeah, so it doesn't look like it's open. Yeah, so it didn't pop up. Okay, weird. Do you want to try downloading the one for 4 and 5? Maybe that'll work instead. That's weird. Oh, what? Latest and most complete. Okay. Did it ask you to do this before?
No. Am I supposed to do it?
No. Yeah, if I... What I'll do is I'll just rename the file. Yeah, I'll save it there, and then maybe I'll just email it to you. See if that works. What's your email?
Was that the name in it, or was it the Z?
Whichever one.
Z.
Yeah. Yeah.
1709
1709.
at 88.village.
Yeah.
This is a T.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Was it Z536
1709.
1709? Alright, if this doesn't work, then I'll see what we can do. How'd that go? Same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's weird. It's just not recognizing what grasshopper files are. Are you using Citrix or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is anyone else using Citrix and it didn't work, or is anyone using Citrix and it did work? Yeah. No, you're good. Fantastic. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if Citrix allows you to use plugins because it's you got to try and download it to like this server.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe
I
see,
get-
maybe see if you can get the evaluation copy of Rhino. Yeah. This is all recorded, so you can come back to it later. Yeah, so if anyone is using Citrix, which is where you like stream an instance of Rhino of some server somewhere, you might not be able to download custom plugins. So I would recommend getting the evaluation version. Just like install it onto your laptop. Yeah, so just make like a bunch of different Rhino accounts and it should work. All right, so who is up to this point where you've got Weaverbird installed? Yeah, has anyone? You can check if it's installed because you'll have a WB tab at the top. Has everyone got that? Yeah, it just says Weaverbird or something. Or... It's probably fine. Does it have these kind of? Yeah, yeah, it'll be fine. All right, we good to go? Good to get going? Okay, great. Okay, what's up? Are you using Citrix as well? Yeah, okay. So you'll just have to install Rhino onto your computer instead of using Citrix because Citrix doesn't let you install plugins, I don't think. Or I don't have enough experience to know whether it does or not. I would recommend just installing Rhino anyway. All right, so yeah, if you're using Citrix, just install Rhino natively to your computer and come back to it in the recording. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a long-ish tutorial, so we might not have an early mark like last week. Sorry. Okay, so first thing we want to do in Rhino is to switch to just like front view. So don't go to perspective view to do this. You want to go to front view. We're essentially just drawing a vertical line, and that'll be our axis for the revolve. If you guys want to do something different, you can, but basically all we need to do is generate a surface. So you can use any of the methods we learned in week 2 to generate a surface, and this will work for that. Sorry? Oh, yeah, so there's... Yeah, so what that'll do, that has this, which is super simple. No. Make your own one, because this is literally just 2 lines. It shouldn't take too long. So this is going to be the generatrix and directrix that I'll be copying from for the tutorial. This is the one that is our tutorial one. But what I'll do, just to show you guys that you can do something different to the tutorial, is to just make like a sort of custom shape. Yeah. So essentially we just need an axis. So this is our vertical line. We're on front projection, so this is looking at it from the front. And then I'm just going to use just this generic control point curve, which is you just pick a bunch of points and it interpolates a curve between it to make our generatrix for the revolved surface. So I'll start at the top, and then just you can do whatever you want to make it sort of funky looking, but I'm just gonna sort of give it a little bit of, you know, curvature like that. So essentially this is the sort of section that we're going to be revolving around the axis. Yeah. What I would recommend doing is going back to week 2 and creating your own surface from any of the methods we used in week 2. So this is just the revolve around an axis method, but you can use the loft method, anything. Actually, I'll just show you the different kinds of methods that you can use so that you get a bit of a refresher. So actually, before we get too deep into this week's stuff, did anyone have any questions about last week or any of the previous weeks, the assignments? So the method that we're going to be using is this one. In the tutorial, we're basically just going to be creating a revolution around an axis like this vase. No, this is from week 2. Remember how we went through this in week 2, yeah? So you can do any kind, as long as you generate sort of like a flat curve, right? So this could be one, this kind of method could be something that you do for this week's one. Just experiment with curve generation. This could be one, it's quite simple, but this could be fine as well. You basically want to experiment with curve generation to try and find something that you can add this pattern to, this pattern that we're going to create. It's going to be on the surface of your surface. That doesn't make sense. It's going to be in the face of your surface, like a facade, right? It's like a facade topology pattern. So this one would be cool. This is just a simple loft. Again, I went through it on week 2, so you can go have a look in that. But yeah, you got to also think about how this is going to be 3D printed as well, because you will need to 3D print this, or generate a render if you're doing that method. But yeah, I would recommend 3D printing it because then you have something tangible that you can say is yours. But yeah, we're just doing the revolution method, so I'll just get on with it. So this is going to be our generatrix, and this is our axis. So we're going to do what we did last week and create 2 curve components. No. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. We're making our surface in Grasshopper using the generatrix from Rhino. That makes sense? Yeah. Great. All right. So this is our generatrix, and this is our axis. So first thing I'm going to do is select this in Rhino. This is how last week's tutorial started, because I know like the recording from last week kind of clipped off the first couple of minutes of it. So this is essentially what we did last week. We created a generatrix and a directrix, and we referenced them in Rhino. So yeah, right click on this and set one curve. Yeah, and now this will go from orange to gray to show you that the curve has been referenced. And this will go from black to green. So then this axis, we're going to set one curve, and now it's an axis. Great. And now we can move back from perspective view. So if I, now that we've referenced them, if I were to change the control points for this curve, right, to make it a different kind of shape, the Grasshopper one will change as well, because it's referencing the geometry from Rhino. So I can change this however much I want, and it'll retain its shape in Grasshopper. So I'm just going to give it like a bit more, I don't know, organic kind of shape. That's probably fine. So now it's got this sort of like, oh shit, that's not right. Yeah, so what I should have done there is made sure that we were still in, yeah, let me just, yeah, so control points, they're going to basically just follow whatever direction your mouse moves in. So they're not going to lock onto like an axis. So if you want them to lock onto an axis, you have to like move to one of these planar views instead of the perspective view. So I'll change this up, and hopefully we don't have an oh shit moment. This is probably fine. So I'll give this a bit more. Yeah. Oh, the referencing and stuff? Yeah, okay. Let me just finish this up, and then I'll get onto it. That's probably fine. Let's see if that... Yeah, there we go. So if you want to mess around with the control points, do it in a planar view instead of a perspective view. So either the top right or bottom or whatever it's called. Front, top, and right, yeah. Right, yeah, so just to go back to the referencing thing, so what you want to do is create 2 curve components. So these are just curve components that I've labeled and like given a name. So to bring up the curve component, you just do CRV, and it brings up this curve. Yep. So we basically just want 2 of these, right? Bifocals, yeah, sorry. There we go. Yep. Yep, yep. Yes, so sweep 2, you're going to need a rail and a start point and a end point. So, that is a good point. I think it should be fine. We're essentially just subdividing a curve. So however you generate the curve is fine. But you may have to alter it a bit for this first subdivision step. Just follow along as you can, but I'll come over if things get tricky. Yeah, so essentially what this does, this method is just the revolution around an axis method. But if you're doing something else, you'll have to try and subdivide it a different way, potentially. So up to you whether you want to follow this or keep subdividing. I think it's cool that you're doing it with the subdivision method. It should be fine. All right, so how's everyone doing? Did we get our generatrix and our axis referenced? Easy. Awesome. All right, so the next thing we are going to do, because we are using our rotate axis method, is we're going to rotate the axis. So this sort of this step here basically just tells us that we're rotating it only 90 degrees around the axis. So if I were to go to the rotate axis command, sorry, rotate, where is it? Oh, revolve, it's called revolve, my bad. Where is it? Revolution, right, okay. So we have our profile curve, which is this generatrix here, the axis, which is our axis, and a domain. So the angle domain is in radians for starters, but we're going to limit it to 90 degrees so that we don't get super confused. If we do 360 degrees, your computer might lag because this is quite a computationally intensive process at the end. So we want our profile curve, which is our generatrix, to go into P for profile, and our axis to go into A for axis. So you'll see that essentially just creates this sort of, you can imagine it as like sort of, if you're molding clay, you know how you've got your clay on like the spinner thing? That's kind of like what this does, right? Anyway, our domain, we are going to construct domain. Construct domain. There we go. So by default, this is from 0 to, I think, 1, but we're just going to set it to 90 using a panel. So essentially, this will just cut a quarter out of our... So if you imagine like this as being revolved around 360 degrees, cutting it into a quarter means we have to cut it into 90 degrees. Oh, but this is in radians. So what we want to do is use our degrees component here. Nope, sorry, our radians component, because we're going from radians to degrees. Degrees to radians, my bad. There. So unlike the other revolves that we've done, this doesn't have like a native sort of degrees to radians conversion built into it. So we have to use the radians component to transform it from 0 to 90 degrees into 0 to whatever the equivalent radians is. So it's half pi. So radians works in like a, if a full revolution is 1 pi, then this is like half pi, I guess. Yeah, 0 to half times pi. All right, how'd everyone go with that? Sweet. If you're doing a different method, like a different kind of construction method, essentially all you'll need to do is get a surface that's sort of like this, yeah? So if you're doing, what method were you doing? Sweep 2? Yeah, so essentially all you'll need is this like surface or whatever your sweep 2 equivalent is. Yeah. All right, let me just double check what we're doing over here. So essentially what we're doing is just, we're creating, like we did last week, we're creating contours along the surface. There's a couple of different ways to do this, but we're just going to be creating polylines because we need to break them up into segments so we can get our sort of, so we can get our sort of like Pantheon roof shape, right? So if you imagine that these are like the subdivisions coming out from the center. Okay, so let's just space these out a little bit.
No, I don't want them to get like that. How can we get them back? He's probably thrown them away. No, he's put it on his wall.
This is what not to do.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to see it again.
Oh yeah, that's how you're like, I didn't do it.
I was like, being honest, I'm not safe enough to be honest.
Yeah, it's like, that's right.
All right, so what we're going to do now is subdivide our surface, and the way we're going to do that is creating copies of our generatrix and then rotate them around our axis. So what I've done here is plug in our 90 degrees because what we're going to be doing is rotating. We're going to be subdividing this 90 degrees by however many repetitions of our generatrix we want. So I'll just put in 5 here. I've renamed this to generatrix count so that it's a bit more simple. I just did 0 to 10, so 5 is in the middle. So what this will be doing is generating 18 of these curves, which may be a bit too many, but I think that should be fine. Yeah, and then what we want to do is create a series so that we can list our curves and list the angle, what they are. List the angle. Oh, yeah? Yeah, okay. So the next... We'll just do it one step at a time, and then eventually by the end of the tutorial we'll have it. It's the same the same kind of concept we've been doing throughout the entire term, just a little bit more steps. Yeah. All right. So we need to rotate our generatrix across this surface evenly, right? So we're going to use rotate axis because essentially what that does is rotate our curve around an axis. So while the revolution one creates a surface out of that rotation, we're just going to be rotating our lines, right? So the geometry we want to rotate is our initial generatrix. The axis we're going to rotate it around is our initial axis, like that. And the oh wait, no, x is the axis, angle is angle. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, sorry. So generatrix goes into G and axis goes into X. Yeah, axis doesn't go into A. That's my bad. So essentially the result is we're going to plug this. What are we going to plug this into? This is going to go into our count, so our number. And then that is going to be times by what? Yeah, x plus 1. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Is that to make like a full, like a closed your shape?
No, this is just to create sort of like contours going around the surface. So if you're doing a different surface generation method, there are better ways to do this. This is this sort of like contour generation method is specific to rotate axis. But if you want to subdivide your surface in another way, there are probably better ways to do it, which I can help you with in a second. So is it just you two at the back who are doing a different method? You swap back? So just you?
Yeah.
Okay, congratulations. All right, so what we're going to do is plug our result into n. N is our step count. So we essentially just want to step up this 18 result by whatever number it's going to be. Yeah? So it's going to be by 5. And then our expression, we're going to set it to x plus 1. And essentially what this does is it just makes sure that we have, okay, not that. Where's our domain? Why is it doing that? Oh, because it's in degrees. That's my bad. There we go. So, just to go over it again, what we're doing here is we're creating a series of numbers. Yeah? We're creating a series of numbers. We're creating 6 values. Each one is incrementing by 18, which is just the subdivision angle of the curve. So if I were to change this, it'd be a different sort of method, like that. I'm just going to set it to 4 because that'll be less taxing on my computer. So the expression we've got here is just plus 1, x plus 1. I'll put that in a scribble. X plus 1. And then make sure you have your angle in degrees, because by default it's in radians. It didn't segment it? Okay. So I'll just pause there for a second so you can make sure that all your lines are connected in the right place. And while you guys do that, I'll come over and tell you.
Whoa, this run is like a virus. Like in every nothing crashes my computer.
I'm not a happy Rhino does this.
They're in the hidden file. The program is not like well, McNeil has its own file named after him.
Yes.
Bye, Rhino. I need to know my computer sound is everywhere. Now, if I open Rhino, it shouldn't work. How?
All right, you guys don't need to be following this, by the way. No. I'm. Don't follow this. No, it's all good.
And I think I brought my braces cleaner, so I can get a little rice out of my teeth. I think I did. I hope I didn't. No, I got it. No, we don't have any. We have the bad. We have the bad free flavor. You know the one we used to have as a child, where it would be like chocolate.
Alright, that's okay.
I've given it a juicy taste.
No. You guys don't have to follow this. Yeah. Okay, so contour does work, but you are probably going to have to create two different contours. Just experiment with contours.
I'm literally sitting here for an hour trying to get right.
Right, sweet. So, no, you guys don't have to follow this. Yeah. Okay, so that should work. You essentially just need horizontal curves and vertical curves. Yeah, so it'll be however you generate your surface, you can still subdivide them. Yeah. Yeah. So all this does is it just takes a surface shape. So I just did loft because it was easier, but you can do however you want. So I'll zoom out for you. Yeah, all good? All right, so I'm going to continue on with the revolve one. That was just for, if you're doing a different kind of surface, this might work for you. Basically just play around with components and see how you can subdivide your surface into vertical and horizontal lines. All right, so this is where we were at. All right, so yeah, this is where we were at. We have our rotated contour lines, and we have our revolution surface. Yeah? So I'm just gonna further divide this up into surface and curve. So this is just so we can group them and then get rid of those. So we know what we're talking about. This is going to be our base surface. And this is just going to be our division curves or surface curves. What's this? It's just a surface, just a regular surface. Yeah. So you just type in whatever this is. Yeah. The bifocals label will just show you what the actual component is. I'm just labeling this so that I can come back to it later. Okay, cool. So these curves, we need to divide them. So divide curve. And we're going to set the number that we're going to divide them by. So let's go like 0 to, actually 10 is probably enough. We'll try and keep our numbers sort of low for this one, because otherwise you're going to put a bit too much strain on your computer by the end. So I'll do 4 by 5 is probably fine. All right, so you can subdivide this however you want. I'm just going to set it to like 6 is probably fine. Whatever looks good on your surface. Yeah. That's fine. Oh wait, what do you mean? Your your rotated curves don't line up to your surface. Oh right, yeah.
I will end every task on my computer. Click to delete this. I'm just normal. No. I use Windows. Adobe, don't need that. If I was Rhino, one of the weird names that I'd be like, probably McNeil. Because I just put his name. He's got folders named after him in Rhino. McNeil. Like the creator. There's like a mix, there's two McNeil. Alright. If I don't get it done by like first half, I'm just gonna go back and like critical.
That's okay.
Good enough.
Windows
Okay. All right. So what we've done so far, we've just created our vertical. So we've created our vertical axes, our vertical sort of contours, and we're just about to create our horizontal contours. So what I'm going to do is just follow along with the tutorial here and create a polyline. So our polyline is just going to, what's it going to do? We need to flip our matrix. So if I flip the matrix, that should, yeah, that's fine. So if you're getting, if you're not getting, okay, sorry, that's a stupid way to say it. Polyline. So if you're getting something that looks like this, where you've got these lines running vertically, what you want to do is plug in a flip matrix, and that basically just inverts the indices of our list. So instead of getting vertical lines, we'll get horizontal lines. So we essentially want our thing to look like this. If your polyline is orange, it's saying 1 0 length segment was collapsed to create a valid polyline. That's fine. That's all good. Closed, false. That's fine as well. If your polyline is orange, but it's still returning you these green polylines, that's totally fine.
Is the arrow going to go away?
No, probably not, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, but that's fine. Like it's like, yeah, that's fine because I'll be having the new tutorial. It's fine. Yeah. Some errors you can kind of let slide. So let's see how they did it here. Yeah. Okay. So I think. All right. Okay, so Daniel's done it a bit of a different way where we flip matrix later. So this will get rid of the orange line for you guys. Yeah, okay. So instead of, how am I going to do this? Just give me 1 minute because I think creating 2 of these surfaces is going to like significantly slow down my laptop. So I'll just put this into a new file. You guys just keep it in yours. I'm just going to create a new document. And then go back to this one, cut it, go back to that one, paste it. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, cool. So let's go back. Let's go back to here. Oh shit. What? Oh, they weren't internalized. That's my bad.
Is it just the sheets or
All right, we'll just deal with it. Okay, so we have our points which divide the curve. We have our polyline which joins these curves in the vertical direction. What we're going to do is do a couple of steps to eliminate the end and the beginning lines, just like we did last week. Remember how we culled the beginning and the end? Do you guys remember that? How we used our shift list to do the -1 and the +1 so that we got rid of the beginning and the first line. Sorry, the first and the last line. We're going to do the exact same thing in this case as well, and then we're going to create our horizontal lines. It's just a bit easier to clean it up early rather than cleaning it up later. All right, Anyway, so we have all of these in a bunch of separate lists. We don't want them in separate lists for now, so we'll just flatten them. Now they're all in one list. What I'm going to do now is flip their matrix. So essentially what this does, if we have a look in our panel, we have 5 polyline curves. And if we flip the matrix of it, we now have 5 groups. Each of them is a polyline curve. Yeah? So essentially what this does is it creates, it gives each of these polyline curves its own sort of branch of our list. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, so the next thing we are going to do is do 2 shift lists, just like we did last week. So we're going to do one of them is going to be shifted by -1, and one of them is going to be shifted by +1. So if we plug in a panel, you're not really going to be able to see any difference because they're all just polyline curves. But what we've done here is create one list. Wait a second. Does that need to be flattened? No, it doesn't. Wrap is false. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so I'll just put in a Boolean toggle like we had last week. So we basically just want to create 2 lists. Each of them has a different start point and a different end point. So essentially, if we highlight this top one, you can see, if I plug in curve, or not, let me just double check what we've got going on here. Yeah, okay, so that's fine. That's fine. Good. Good. Cool. So we're going to end up creating a bunch of different surfaces here. All right, next thing we're going to do is graft tree. So you can see that essentially what we've got here is our list of... Okay, that's weird. Why is that like that? Empty parameter. That's what I forgot to do. I forgot to explode it into segments. All right, just to update you guys. Instead of out of your polyline, you're going to put in an explode component. That's my bad. I forgot that. So basically we have our 5 curves here, right? And then after we explode them and grab the segments, we have 6 segments on each of our 5 curves. So we have like 30 total curves. So what you can see now, if you hover over if you click on your shift list and highlight it, you've essentially got one list without the starting curve, and then one list without the last curve, just like we did last week. So once we've plugged in our graphed trees, we need to simplify them because they've got stacks on stacks of extra uh, extra levels to their tree. So essentially what we've just done is we've given each of these segments its own tree. Yeah. Is that good? Okay. So just take a minute here, guys, to make sure that you've got all these segments connected to the right spot. Make sure you have this flatten here on the polyline. Make sure your booleans for the wrap input of shift list are false. And make sure you've simplified the output of your graphed trees. So I'll just give you guys a couple of minutes to make sure that this is all right, and then we'll move on. It might just not be highlighted. You might have turned off the highlight. So have you got your divide curve here? The little point display is just coming from divide curve. That's weird. What is your, if you hover over the output, what does it say? Does it say?
I mean, it's like, the thing is, you have to be gradual. So eventually, I got slightly.
Okay. So did you do? Is it just because you were having problems with the display earlier, right? Like a couple of weeks ago, the colors and stuff weren't. That's all fine now. Okay, let me have a look.
This course is going to be the death of me. This course is going to be the death of me. I want the divide curve should still show up. Can we all have like a funeral all together? And then the segment's just going to set it. Make it abstract. Make my grade. No, but like taking out the dividing the axis and then build a house on top of it, and then it can be like dividing.
So just increase that.
No, we can. Our house is
Me? Yes.
and we can
Whatever you want. So make it a whole number.
Oh my god, that was such a sad house.
Alright, so we're going to move on. After our graphed tree, we're just going to do a simple merge. So you're going to merge these together. And then we're going to loft these together. So essentially what this has done is we have gone from this kind of organic base surface, right, to something a little more subdivided. So now we have our subdivided sort of squares. So if I was to go into our parameters and to change, if I was to change the subdivision count, you'd see that we get like a more accurate approximation of our shape, right? It follows the base surface a bit more easily, but it also is a bit more taxing on our computer. So I think 10 is probably a good place to leave it. I had it on 5 before just because I wasn't sure how computationally hard it was going to be for our computer, but I think 10 is probably fine. So yeah, so all I did was merge and then loft. So this is the simplify like action, I guess. So essentially, what this does is what it was before was, if I put in another graph tree, we'll see what it was at before.
Mine doesn't come though. Mine's still very
So essentially, all this does is it just trims out the excess levels to the excess like branches to our tree that we don't need.
But how come yours has like squares?
You broke it. You have the like Jojo food refrigerators, which are like small. Yeah, and then you got the fruits, and then drinks, and then all the aisles actually down at the back. No, I don't have that. Okay, sure. No, cafes are easy because cafes are also the chefs. Yeah, so in the back door, there's like normally the back door is the it's normally the loading dock first. And then it's like the staff room on the side.
I'll show you mine.
So what you were saying?
My
staff room control the structure.
The back doors and stuff really doors are like kind of
We've got the loading dock, and then I have to go upstairs to the staff room. It feels like I'm in a theater.
So like these are like stuff doors. I don't know what time it is. I just left it for nothing. Or like here as well. I don't know. Maybe just do an yeah, so I have it stuff. Yeah. In this too, yeah, like 5 hours. Not including maybe not.
Maybe I should choose a more complicated. My cafe is just like not really small. I'm looking over everyone's portfolios and they're like huge and dramatic, and I'm like, well, maybe render it out. I can say that the little Mr. Rice cafe is actually What's your to go up Yes. I'm assuming it's just because
like they say it wrong and they're like they say it right and it's ugly. It's like I'm sorry, like I did it wrong. I'm sorry. Okay, or is it like yeah, that one. Yeah. I don't know because sometimes they just think I mean I know I'm sorry. Like it's just I'm like
all the tutors have to go in including the online class. I can't see that. I guess we'll just keep going. We'll keep going. How's everyone else? Yeah, this is literally it. That is totally that looks good. Yeah. How are you guys doing? Yeah.
have you done the detox then? That was my best. Yeah. The readings are like 20 pages, and I don't want to. Yeah.
I mean, the time to 11:55, which is nice.
Honestly, I really hope it doesn't allow the readings because they play albums that are full on. So yeah, Chris, when you go out there, did we want to do the EP part? Get that up. And let us know how it goes for you, so see how it goes.
I mean, normally for like the readings, it's just
Like it's just you know, yeah. I think based on the lectures,
I mean, normally I just put it on 1.5 script.
even that is working with the same daydream so much.
I just quickly write notes. You like those red S? I think it's blue. Yeah, it's okay. I just didn't say that. How you guys doing?
I think I'm right.
Yep, you're good. How do you get to close? Yeah, we're gonna do that. No, don't make it different sweet wine. Make it like a different surface. Right? So this one we're doing now is the revolved surface.
Can you imagine?
When we just see everyone walking out.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So we're just gonna grab the edges of our loft now. So guys. All right. All right. Let's focus up. So we need to probably get a good chunk of this done before lunch because the next part of it is a little bit complicated and I want to go over it in detail so that we don't get lost. So this is what our script should look like without these panels. This is what it should look like until like up to now, up to this point. You can turn off the display for all of this stuff so that we just have our planar segments, right? So we have our sort of planar panels that approximate our surface that we had before, yeah? If yours doesn't have this, something's probably gone wrong with the loft. So this red display is just the result of the loft, yeah? So I've got 40 different surfaces here. Each of them are this kind of thing here, right? Each correspond to one of the panels on this surface. You're looking confused. What's up?
Yeah, I'm just like turn off this everything.
Except for the loft, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our B-wrap edges. And B-wrap edges essentially does exactly what it says. It gets the edges of our B-wrap. So this is going to just get the edges of our curve. We are going to join all of these together. So how many is this? Just hover over this to see if what the different curves you have are. Yeah, so I have empty interiors, empty non-manifold, and I only have the naked list here. So all this does is it just joins all of these disjointed curves into separate curves. Yeah, so 40 of these. And each of them sort of approximate, like if we use a list item, each of them is going to approximate the boundary of our panels. You guys don't have to do this part, but I'm just going to show you if you wanted to check and see like what each of these joined curves actually represents. It's just going to be, oh, maybe we have to flatten this. No, we have to simplify it and then flatten it. Yeah, okay. Cool. So just simplify that because I think we had one too many like layers in our tree there. And then we're going to flatten our curves. Yeah. Basically, all this does is not subdivides, but it just organizes our panels so that each of these indices corresponds to borders of one panel. Yeah? So list item just steps through our list of panels, our list of panel edges, sorry, so we can highlight them. If yours, you can use this to check whether or not your panels have like distinct edges like mine do. Yeah, okay, that should be fine. All right. You don't have to do the list item, but it's sort of just good practice to check whether or not your lists are behaving as you want them to. So, for instance, I'm checking here. Basically, what this combination of slider and list item is doing is it's checking, it's highlighting the object at index number 9 on the list. So, yeah, so just make sure that you've simplified your edges and flattened your curves. And the output of your joined curves should be like, you know, a number of polyline curves. The slider number, it doesn't really matter. It's just basically to check the sequence of your list. You guys don't have to do the list item. We're going to delete it in a sec. We're about to delete this. I just used it to sort of diagnose, make sure our lists are behaving as they should. Yeah? So are people having problems with this particular thing? Yeah? Okay, so now that our list is behaving as we should, then we can delete it. The list item. That was literally just to diagnose and see if we have any problems. Next thing we are going to do is create literally just a point on our axis. So what we're going to do is go evaluate curve. Yep. And we're going to do a slider from 0.0 to 1. And that's going to go into our t, our lowercase t thing here. Yeah. You don't need to connect this to anything yet. Just do a slider from 0.0 to 1. I'm going to set this at 0.5. We want to right click on the curve component. We want to click reparameterize. And then go all the way back and drag our axis into this. So essentially what that does is it just creates a point halfway along our axis. If I've got it set to 0.5, it'll be halfway. If you guys set it to something else, it'll be something else. All right. So we're going to create some cells now. So just like our Roman pantheon, see how there's like stepped sort of recessed squares within the larger squares. Yeah, we're going to create cells that are basically like that, and then we're going to join them so that we have a platform for our Weaverbird to create a mesh on. Because Weaverbird can't create a mesh if it's just like planar curves. They need to have some kind of thickness. So what we're going to do is we're going to scale our panel boundaries, move them in or out of the center, and then connect them together with sort of like interior surfaces. So that way Weaverbird has some sort of like thickness to work with. All right, does that make sense? We're basically creating something like this. Okay, moving on. What I'm going to do is get the center of our polygons. We're going to scale them, and those will be our internal cells. Okay, cool. So sorry for my computer being a bit laggy. I'm trying to run two of these files at once. So we're going to grab the center of our polygon. So polygon center is the component we want. I'm just going to put in a little curve component here as well, so we can sort of so we can sort of put a breakpoint almost in our script. This curve component sort of delineates sections of the script from the other section. So if you can imagine, this was our first section, this was our second section, and now we're about to start on our third section. Oh, there's probably like maybe 6 or 7. Yeah, we're halfway through the tutorial, we're halfway through the script. Everything's going smoothly. All right, so you can see we've essentially just created a centroid at the middle of every panel. We have a center of the vertices. There's different methods here, basically. We've got a center of the edges, a center of the vertices, and a center of the area. Most of the time they'll overlap, but for less regular shapes, they won't overlap. But we just want to pick out the center of the vertices. Yep, center of vertices, cool. And then we're going to scale it. So the center of the vertices is going to go into our center of scale. Our factor is going to be somewhere between 0 and 1. So I'm going to do 0.00 to give us a little bit more fine-tuning ability. We'll put it to like 0.8 something, maybe. It doesn't really matter. And the geometry that we're going to scale are these curves. So essentially this just creates almost like an offset, right? I think, let me just double check that I've done this right. I'm pretty sure I have. Yeah, okay. Interesting. That's fine. Let me just double check that I've got this right. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. All right. So this distance basically just defines how big our inner cells are going to be. You can have them as small or as big as you want. I'm going to make them like half the size of the parent cell. Polygon center, if it's misbehaving for you, don't worry too much about it. It should be fine. Let me just double check this. So yeah, that's just going to make that bigger. Sorry, this is just the tutorial file. The center is the center is that. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's also fine. Okay, cool. Okay, so sorry, let me go back to this. So we're going to do a couple more scales. Actually, before we do that, let's label our curves. So this curve that we've got here is our interior curve. Let's just call it our, what are we going to call it? What did Daniel call it? Daniel called it his internal cells. Okay. Internal cells, cool. Let's do that. That's actually a good name, internal cells. Yeah, internal cells. The next thing we are going to do is essentially give this a little bit of thickness so that it can go in and out. So we're going to put in our curve to our scale. Yeah, see how it makes it kind of tiny? That's fine. Uh-oh. Ooh, okay. I might need to borrow someone's laptop charger again. You got more? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll just keep swapping. Yeah. Appreciate it. All right, so the center of our scaling for this particular one is going to be. Hang on a second. No, that's a point. My bad. Nope, not that kind of point. Just PT point. Yeah, that. So from your evaluate curve, this is going back a little bit. From your evaluate curve, we're just going to do a little point and label it as our center point. Actually, we're going to call it axis center point. That's probably more accurate. Just back there. And from the axis center point, we're just going to put that into our center of scale, like that. Yeah? And the factor that we're going to scale it by is anything greater than 1. So I'll do 1.00 to like 2. So we don't want this to scale too much. But yeah, see how essentially what it's done is it's created like a larger version of our panels? Yeah? All right, let's do some good practice housekeeping stuff and move both of these scaling factors over here and label them. So this one is going to be internal cells scale. This one is going to be external cells scale. So one goes to the top scale, one goes to the bottom scale. Top one is internal cells, bottom one is external cells. I'm going to create another curve component, and label them. So this one is external cells. Yeah, does that make sense? External cells. This is going to be I don't know. I guess maybe we should call it like exterior cells. All right, we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're going to scale it in a less than one direction. So basically, we want to put in an expression here, do a little bit of maths. So grab your expression. We're going to edit the expression so that it says, what is it? Is it x minus x plus 1? No, x minus x minus 1. Okay. X minus bracket, I think 1 minus x is what we want. And then, let me just double check if that's right. 1 minus x minus 1. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. Sorry. 1 minus x minus 1. Yeah. Basically, that is going to make sure that our interior scale is just the inverse of our exterior scale. So, then we're feeding that into this. Just like that. There.
Wasn't there already?
There was a number slide in there.
Yeah, so this same number slider goes into both, but it just goes into the expression first for the bottom line.
Oh.
So essentially what this did, we just gave the cells some like external and internal thickness. The scale. Oh, it's just the number slider for the external cells. So if we change this, it should change both of these distances, yeah? Because one is positive and one is like just the inverse of it. Right? And then you can make it as small or as big as you want, right? Right, so we've got our internal cell scale connected to our first scale component, and then our external cells scale number slider is connected to our second scale components, and for the bottom one, it's connected to this inverse expression first. And I'm just going to make sure we label these all correctly. So this one is just going to be interior cells. I'm actually going to call this interior frame and exterior frame because cells is a different thing. All right, does that kind of make sense? If you guys just take a moment to copy that. Yeah, what's up?
I don't know.
Bless you.
mini one on each side and then another mini, slightly big one on each side. How do I make one of them prettier?
Make sure that your expression is correct. It might be your expression that's wrong.
I don't have three things. I have just one thing.
What do you mean?
Like Rhino is just there's no. Oh yeah.
Make sure your slider is like right in. Yeah. It can't be just like. That's easy.
So the external slider.
Yeah. So I think it's just because you're. How about you guys? How do you guys? Oh yeah, don't put spaces. No. What about you guys? Good? The scale factor is just another slider from 1.00 to 2.00. Which one? Like this one?
Yeah.
So it's the same slider as this one? Oh, that's the sorry, that's your like your center point slider. So you want that slider to be as well. Yeah, so that should be yeah, that's good. Yeah, cool. How about you guys? Okay, so that needs to have room. So you have your side. And then just give it like a so yeah, these two also so the two scale sliders are actually the same slide. There's no two separate sliders, it's just one slide. Right, so just to clarify, these two Fs, so these two scale factors, connect to the same slider. Yeah? So these two scale factors connect to the exact same slider, and that just dictates the thickness of our wall. Yeah, I just put them over here so we have all the parameters in one place. Okay.
One day I feel like married and I'm like, where can I Oh yeah. Oh, that's perfect. That was good time. You need to.
All right, so are we all up to this stage where we've got an interior frame, an exterior frame, and our internal cells? Yours isn't working? All right. Well, that's okay. That's okay.
My legs are brushed over, but like, oh, in the night. I'm like, I'm like five shades of brown. Because it feels really something like because the whole grade. Because white and like brown and like white again. The one time like last 2020, I feel red. And like I was gonna become ice cream, but it was like white, red, brown. And my friends were like, bro, are you so alive? I don't think I can take a reverse. My friend has her face. I thought I was turning on, but I just didn't pick up. Or maybe I fell asleep or something. Like I just passed out. Because I thought I was like under a tree, which I was, but I think the sun moves.
Okay, so we've got our internal cells, right? We've got our internal cells. That's these ones here that are on the face of our planar segments. We have our exterior frame, and we have our interior frame. Does everyone have those three properties? Great. Now we're going to merge them in a specific way. So we're going to merge our internal cells with our exterior frame, and then we're going to merge our I think we're going to merge our interior with our, yeah, okay, cool. Then we're going to merge our interior cells with our interior frame, yeah? So essentially now what we have is one group with the middle one and the outer one, and then one group with the middle one and the inner one. So we're also going to graft these. We're just going to graft all of these inputs. Right, so that's where we're at. Our internal cells are connected to the D1 of both merges. Exterior frame is the D2 of the top merge. Interior frame is the D2 of the second merge. All right, great. Moving on, we're going to loft them all together so that we get our sort of like thickness thing. So if we're doing, we'll do this part slowly. Basically, what this does, if I flatten, oh no, I'm not flattening that. Flattening that, I think. Yeah. So essentially what this does is it creates that kind of connection between the interior cell and the exterior frame. So if I go back to our Pantheon picture, we've created this kind of part here, just without all the different segments. So just to go back, we have a loft, like that. Make sure you graft your inputs for the merge, otherwise it's not going to work. Same, we're doing the same thing for the next one as well.
Wait. I don't know why I don't have.
Yeah? So this is going to look a bit funky until we actually round off the edges, but basically we have this kind of recessed shape on each panel that extends out towards the exterior frame, and we have this recessed shape on the interior as well. And if we change our extrusion distance, so if we change how far out our frames are, it also changes. Yeah, it changes that as well. Cool. I'm going to leave it at 1.10. But we'll get around to that later. All right, so the next part, we're going to start working in Weaverbird. We'll do that after lunch, but to get it ready for Weaverbird, we need to turn this into a mesh. So I'm just going to use the simple mesh component. This is just a native Grasshopper component that turns B-reps, which is our red ones that we've got now, into meshes, which are a little bit different. So simple mesh, just like that. We are going to get our mesh. Nope, that's not it. What are we going to get? Mesh join, mesh join, mesh join. Okay. So we have a simple mesh here, which turns our B-rep into a mesh. And then we have mesh join is the next one. So essentially we had 40 distinct meshes now. We should have just one. So it joins our whatever number of meshes we had to just one. And then we're just going to join those two again. Great. And that's where we're going to leave it for until lunch. You've got to hold down shift. Yeah, so if you want to connect two wires to one input, you have to hold down shift. Cool. So if I turn off the visualization for everything up to that point, we should have something that looks like this. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, so we have simple mesh, mesh join, and then mesh join again.
Oh, and then you make it.
So if you don't like how yours looks, you can change the scale factor here. So you can make it either move in or out, like that. So you can make it thinner. You can also change what direction they sort of scale out to. So you can change your internal cell scale as well. Yeah, so we'll leave ours at like something like that. So we've got a cool frame. Where also this one is the, sorry, I forgot to label this earlier. So this is the axis point, I guess. So this also changes, like, it skews the sort of direction that this is out of, but we'll just leave it at 0.5. So it's even. All right, so this is what we've done so far. So quite a lot of work for one half of a tutorial, but you guys followed along really well. Yeah, make sure now would be a good time to save if you haven't saved already. You need to save your Grasshopper file and your Rhino file because your Rhino file has our reference geometry in it. So make sure you save them in the same place, Rhino and Grasshopper files. Yeah, everything but the final mesh. All right, so once you've done this part, you guys can head off to lunch. If you guys need to stay back and ask any questions, you're more than welcome to do that. I just saw it's raining outside, so that kind of sucks. I'm gonna stop the recording here, and this is gonna be part 1, and then when we get back from lunch, I'll record part 2.